Welcome to the WSU Democrats Podcast. My name is Ethan Bishop. I'm the president of the organization.
My name is Vaughn. I'm the vice president.
And I'm Stella, and I'm a proud member.
Vaughn mostly took care of the script today, so I'm going to pass it off to him.
We'll talk about the Young Republicans of America group chat being leaked. Talk about DHS putting out a fake video to spread a false narrative and propaganda. We'll talk about the No Kings protest that happened on Saturday. We'll talk about Israel-Hamas, the ceasefire violation, and what it's going to look like going into that. And then RFK Jr. will talk about his former views on Trump, as well as some other Trump administration members, what they thought of him pre-2016. Talk about President Trump suing his own administration for $230 million, which will come out of your own wallet as an American taxpayer. So we'll talk about the first thing. So you guys heard about the Young Republicans America group chat being leaked and all the terrible things that were said. I mean, for those people who don't know the details, just praising Hitler, talking about being Nazis, a lot of slurs, just terrible things that are way beyond a joke. And J.D. Vance responded to this, and instead of condemning, these things that were said, he immediately plays it off, and I'll quote him here. He said, "The reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. That's what kids do." So he says kids a lot of times, and none of these members are kids. They're all over the age of 20. Peter Gunta he was the former head of the organization. He's 31, and most accounts indicate that all of them are at least over 24 years old. So none of them are kids. None of them are young boys. These are adults, and they are and have been the future of the Republican Party. This isn't just some random online group. This is very serious because this is who you're electing. And he also said that if you allow yourself to be distracted by focusing on what kids are saying in a group chat, grow up. So he's just playing this whole thing off as not a big deal. And I guess I'll just let you guys speak. What do you think about that?
It's just fucking crazy. I mean, didn't they say something about bringing back slavery, saying that they're a Nazi, saying that we should put Democrats in gas chambers and all that. And yeah, they're not young boys. They're what? Yeah, like the youngest was 24. It's like, I'm younger than all of these people. And it's just, and what it makes it, even more disgusting is how they're the Young Republicans of America. These are the people who organize with candidates and to get them elected and to really have an apparatus of the Republican Party and to be that representation there. So they have a lot of power and they wield that, and they have a lot of access to politicians, and it's actually much more of a prestigious position to be, like, for example, the president of the Young Democrats of Utah, or like the Young Republicans of Utah. And when you go into like the national level, it's like this is a huge organization of college Republicans, college Democrats, young Republicans, young Democrats. So they're in a huge position of power, and the fact that they could just be up there, saying all these slurs, and it must have been a while before they got exposed, because they must have been saying it for a while, and that's why so much just got exposed at once rather than just a little bit. Although if there was a little bit, I guess it wouldn't be as big of a story, but just with how much came out, it's just disgusting, and I don't know why they thought how they thought they could get away with that without people just having this reaction.
It's scary, to be honest. How long after World War II did we in the American public often fight against fascism? I can call up into at least the 70s at the earliest. At the latest, that we maybe stop talking about it mainstream and focus more on communism, because Bob Dylan and that era of musicians, all their guitars said, had stickers that said, "This machine kills fascists." So, it's ingrained in almost everybody who's alive's mind in America that fascism is bad, but we're kind of bringing it back with this. We're also seeing the same issue in Germany right now, where there is a super far-right party who is starting to take hold in the eastern part of Germany where the USSR once had access to. So, and it's the same thing. These like 24-year-old Germans are, praising Hitler again, which is, when you say it's a German doing that, everyone's like, whoa, that's weird. But when it's American, why is it okay for an American kid to do that? It just makes no sense.
Yeah. There's also a lot of hypocrisy in the whole thing, especially with J.D. Vance. When Charlie Kirk was shot, he said that critics of Charlie Kirk who focus on things Kirk said rather than the assassination are contributing to an environment where further violence becomes more likely. So he's also, with that, he's, kind of passing the baton, and with basically don't focus on Charlie Kirk as a racist and as a sexist and a homophobe. Just have empathy for him, when he was killed. And anyone who made any sort of jokes about him, he would go off and be, furious about that. And then when, people talk about, they talked about raping, political opponents they didn't like, just as a joke, I guess. And, he can't even, he doesn't have to say much. All he has to say is, I condemn these words, and these people, shouldn't have been saying that. That's all he really had to say, but he can't even say that. He just has to, pass the blame. And he posted on Twitter, I'll quote him. So he said, a friend shared these truly disturbing messages from a young Republican group chat. The group leader genuinely calls for murdering the children of his political opponents. And he goes, oh, wait, actually, this is from Jay Jones, the Democrat running for Attorney General in Virginia. So he posted a text thread where apparently this guy, Jay Jones, calls for murdering his political opponent's children. And so he just kind of mocks it, saying it's from a Republican group chat. Oh, wait, this is actually a Democrat. So he, number one, doesn't condemn the language at all and plays it down as just kids saying stupid things. And then he passes the blame to the Democrats, who aren't even involved in this whatsoever, right? This is just a Republican issue, just a Republican group chat. And he's, again, just pointing fingers.
Yeah. And one thing that I would say with what J.D. Vance is like, oh, don't just condemn the murder, don't you talk about what he said. It's like two things can be true at once, and we don't have to neuter ourselves to reality. You can not celebrate the murder or say that the murder was justified and still say, well, yeah, but Charlie Kirk was a racist. He thought the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. He said that if he had a black pilot, he would, I hope that they're qualified, as if a black person being there doesn't mean that they probably worked a lot harder than a white pilot would ever have to be in that position. So it's like, no, we don't need to, not say the truth just because it's inconvenient. It's like, no, we need to say the truth about who Charlie Kirk was, who anyone was, regardless of what they did or whether they get killed or not. We can't just lie just to not piss off some people. Facts don't care about your feelings, as they like to say. But with conservatives, they don't always go by that. They just want us, oh, yeah, my feelings. Oh, say everything good about Charlie Kirk, even though he honestly, if you want to go for like egalitarianism and who is benefited and who you're advocating for, and if you're widening the circle of compassion to include more people rather than less, it's like Charlie Kirk did the opposite of that. He tried to make it include less people, not include trans people, not include black people, and that's saying something, because not all right-wingers will go as far as attacking black people. Obviously, the young Republicans would. We're talking about bringing back slavery and all that sort of thing, and that's a terrifying resurgence. They're not just going after LGBT, they're going after black people too, and is obviously migrants and all of these communities that are at risk.
And the only other thing I'd like to point out about the young Republicans is more on the hypocrisy of stuff, because, if it's these 24-year-olds making these jokes, that's like the same age of those like crazy leftists that are making all the weird jokes about Charlie Kirk, and whatnot. So they're all the same age, but if we want to take, if we're just going to take exactly what J.D. Vance says is like fact and is truth, then these young Republican kids, they're not focused on anything political, because if they're just kids, they're hormonal teenagers who are deviant monsters. And if they're talking about raping people, but at the same time, they have the value of family and, having a traditional family and a loving life. In today's society where a good chunk of women are finally educated, I don't think any woman who has any sense of self-preservation or wants to have any form of life is going to want to interact with these men who want these traditional families, because they're not going to get that acting this way. And it pisses me off a lot, because it's scary for everybody, because, these men aren't going to get their hormones out, they might turn to violence, which just creates more problems, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense how, J.D. Vance is making an excuse for these young Republicans because they're young or whatever, yet he wouldn't say that about the same demographic of people making posts about Charlie Kirk. That's a good point. It's just a huge hypocrisy there.
And just one more thing about this. So the Arizona group of the young Republicans, the head of that, he condemned the rhetoric from the Telegram chat, but raised concerns about their authenticity and context. So authenticity, the messages were leaked, and it's very obvious that none of this is like fabricated. This is word for word what was said. And then context, there's no context that could, nothing whatsoever that could explain or justify someone, saying these things. I love Hitler, or, don't need to go into the details, but all those things, there's no context that could save that. So it's just, again, making excuses and, just trying to downplay the big issue that this really is, which is a far-right nationalist movement that's fueled by violence and hatred, and they're supported by the administration, and their numbers are only growing. So I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but the Department of Homeland Security posted on X, they reposted a TikTok, or a screenshot of a TikTok of some African-American guys with, just kind of standing in the background with a caption that says, "ICE, we're on the way. Word in the streets, cartels put a 50,000 bounty on y'all." And they say that, we need to stop violence against ICE agents. So this video is fake. They took a real video and then they put a fake caption over it. And the original says, "You seen what we do. Don't say something you can't finish. Iran. We all ready. United. We all stand. We want all the smoke." So that's the original video. They took that and changed the caption to fit their false narrative, to spread, to increase racial divide, to spread violence, spread hate. And the fact that this is coming from, our federal government is very, very alarming. So they said that cartels put a 50,000 bounty on ICE agents. That's a rumor. The administration says it's true, but obviously you can't believe anything they say. Mexico's president actually came out with a statement, Claudia Sheinbaum. She said that her government has no information regarding claims by the Trump administration that Mexican cartels are offering bounty for U.S. immigration officials. So Mexico denies it, and then it just doesn't make any sense. Cartels usually avoid at all costs directly targeting U.S. agents in fear of severe retaliation. This is something that only happens in movies, cartels doing these extreme things, and then the entire U.S. government gets sent on them. That's what happens, so they don't do that. It's just not true.
Yeah, and, just coming up with propaganda and, spreading racial division. I'm not familiar with this video. So what exactly does it show in it?
So it shows, I guess I'll show you later, but it's it's just a TikTok, like, paused, and they have a screenshot, and the caption says about cartels putting a bounty on ICE agents. And then the actual video it's the same video, but the caption, the wording is just different. And the original video is about Iran and not anything to do with ICE agents. So, yeah, just blatantly lying to the public, coming up with misinformation. It's very crazy.
Yeah, it's insane how much, misinformation and AI that this administration has been using and posting willingly, and like it's insane how people don't see how that's like very authoritarian and like controlling and everything. It boggles my mind. And but like one thing that comes to mind with this was if you go back to the 80s, and the birth of the internet, or late 80s, 90s birth of the internet, you had all the boomers who were in their like 40s, with their kids and their like teens being like, hey, be careful with these devices and whatnot, because the communists might be listening to you. You can tell it's fake if it does this, this, and this. They pushed so hard for that. And then now, when it's kind of more obvious than ever when something's a scam or fake, they're believing it more, which, like, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but maybe there's something in the water, that's making all these older people just dumb. And
they're already that way.
I know. And, they've all got college degrees, and they're like, oh, I've got all this experience. I'm smart. I know how the world works. No, their mind is stuck in a different century. Like, granted, that century was less than 30 years ago, but still, a lot can change in 7 years. Once again, Hitler took power in 1933. 7 years later, France has been invaded. So, a lot can change in just a little amount of time, and it's wild to see all these people just, like, ignore all this and just believe anything that's true. And then, speaking with the original on how, like, Iran, so I haven't seen the video either, but I'm guessing from what I just heard that, just kind of condemning Iran for all their, war crimes or whatever. But in, like, 2008, American Dad, made a song about how Reagan and Ollie North, sold the Iran-Contra affair, that whole thing. And there's a line in the song where Stan goes, Ollie North secretly sold missiles to Iran, who'd be a grateful ally forever. That is obviously comedic, and everybody knows that. Still today when I see it circulate on TikTok all the time. Everyone knows it's a laugh. But I don't know. I'm getting this vibe that our federal government's like, oh yeah, Iran is bad, but what's worse? Our own citizens trying to stand up. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll show you guys that after so you can see more of the details. But so we'll talk about the No Kings protest on Saturday. So as Trump loves to lie, he was asked about the protests, and he said they were very small and very ineffective. And now I'll read you the facts of how it actually was. So there were about 7 million people who participated across the U.S. in more than 2,700 rallies in all 50 states, and it was all peaceful. No rioting, no looting, no violence, no nothing. And it will likely rank among the largest single-day mass demonstration in modern U.S. history. So, not only was it a very large rally, it was could possibly be the biggest in the country's history, which is just, so obvious to not take Trump's word for it when he says the exact opposite, and just shows that people really got under his skin with this protest, which I think was awesome. And then he said that he is not a king, and these people are not American. So these people who protested are, the definition of American. They prioritize the Constitution. They're protesting that they don't want a dictator, a king, any central authority like that. They're protesting what the Constitution was founded on, what the founders believed, and he's calling them not American because he himself is not American. He's a fascist. He's a wannabe dictator. And then he says that he's not a king, but he posted, I don't know if you guys saw this one, He posted an AI video of him in a crown. He was in a crown in the video, so he's not a king, but he wears a crown. He's flying a fighter jet, and he drops feces on the protesters. So, I mean, there's just a lot to talk about here. But that alone is, not someone who's mentally stable. I think someone who's running the country should act like an adult and act, like a role model, be respectful, and posting things like this is just insane.
He's just a child, like, for real. Like, and then when he posted the AI video of him as the Pope, like after the Pope died, and like just so much different AI kind of bullshit. I'm sure, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he sees this video and would want to do something about it. I don't know if you guys saw, it's going everywhere. It's like the video of this older dude with his like friends, and he's saying he's at the No Kings protest, and he's like, let's go ICE, God bless Trump, and that sort of thing. And they said something, you effing FAGs.
Yeah.
And then, someone looked like a teenager went and like took his glasses from him, and he chases after him, and then he like falls, and then he goes and he gets tripped again, and he busts his eyebrow, and he's just bleeding, and then he tries to go, and it's like, I don't know, it was funny. Like, honestly, do I think he deserved that, or should that have happened? I don't know. But that was just kind of a funny little thing that happened.
Yeah, that was karma. I love that video. I saw that.
One thing with the AI video specifically is I don't think Trump or anyone in the administration knows how to write anything above a third grade level. Because when you're asking AI prompt something, you can be ultra specific and make everything just right, In the video, the protesters are carrying American flags. Okay? In this AI video, the protesters are carrying American flags, and Trump is shitting on the American flag.
Which is funny because in the actual protests, there were people waving, flags of other countries, which he could have used. That would have been accurate. But
no, but Trump is shitting on the American flag, which is insane considering how he says, burning it, your amendment right to be able to burn the flag is, a sin and you're gonna be sent to prison. But yet he's shitting on the fucking flag.
It's like, how much of a child do you have to be where he didn't want to go as far as to actually do an AI video of him actually nuking the people. So he's like, you know what, we're just gonna drop a bunch of shit on them. And it's like, that's so just disgusting on so many levels. And it's like that we have a president that would do that or approve of someone posting this is just that much of a troll. This is just like, and he's been this way, like even on Twitter, like back in 2020 when he was like destroying the post office before the 2020 election, he then like after everyone was concerned about it, he was like posted in all caps, save the post office. It's like after he himself was destroying it. And it's like, so he's been doing all this kind of shit. I think it's just gotten worse with AI because then they can just use that to make up stupid fucking videos.
Yeah, he loves his AI videos. He's posting more and more of them. Just anything he doesn't like, anything he thinks is funny. I was looking through his Twitter account, unfortunately, and he posted another video where he has a bunch of Trump 2028 hats. And, MAGA will defend this to their last breath. They'll say it's just a harmless joke, just like everything else. They'll downplay it. He's not a king. He's not going to run for a third term. And, okay, then why is he posting stuff with the crown? Why is he building a ballroom, out of, funding it from his own wallet? When he should be out of there by the end of his term? Why would he invest that? And, they'll defend it as a harmless joke until he formally announces that he's going to run a third term, and then they'll say, oh, I guess I was wrong. But in the meantime, you see these obvious signs, and they'll just deny it.
Like when they when Trump did like a last-minute meeting with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, they had Trump 2028 hats on the desk, literally just to be like, oh, yeah, like, I'm going to troll you in this way. And, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, and I could see him running for another term. Do I think he necessarily will be able to? I'm not exactly sure about that. I honestly hope that our institutions could hold to that extent. But speaking of Hakeem Jeffries, a dude, I don't know if you have this because this is so recent, that was a January 6th rioter who was pardoned by Trump. He has now been arrested because he had a credible death threat against Hakeem Jeffries, and he had the intent to plan it out, or to carry it out.
Was that in the airport? In the airport? Or no?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it was all just based in New York.
Yeah.
But that might not be. But yeah, it's just another thing that caused by Trump, just letting people go who then think that they have a permission structure to commit more violence and they're going to get pardoned again. And we'll see if they do.
Yeah, there's more than one example of that, of the January 6th insurrectionists that he pardoned who have then been arrested after the fact for other violent crimes that they committed. Trump also announced that he I can't remember the term, but basically he plans to, or is thinking about, lessening Diddy's sentence, which is already only 4 years, which is pretty short for what he was convicted of. And yeah, Trump said that he plans on trying to lessen his sentence. You know, what sort of context or reasoning does he have behind that? Why, what's the point? I mean, do you guys have anything to say on that?
If anything, and why he's doing that, it's because he's being controlled by the elites, this like Illuminati or whatever. Because I don't know, I don't see why Donald Trump would give any, would even look towards Diddy's direction, because Diddy was a musician and music producer of music that Trump kind of doesn't like. The black rap is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm pretty confident Trump doesn't like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Diddy's got decent connections with Jay-Z, and then Jay-Z got connections with Beyonce, and there's all this conspiracy that anyone who wins a Grammy doesn't think Beyonce, just mysteriously dies. So if there's any Illuminati or something, Trump's definitely involved if he's, looking into this, because the music industry's got its own weird conspiracies revolving around those people. So that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
I think Donald Trump sees Diddy and some of the sexual crimes he's accused of and all that, and how he likes to have those big Diddy parties and all that. And maybe Trump likes to have parties kind of like that, or sexual, just gross. I don't even want to imagine that, but he sees himself kind of like Diddy in that way, and that maybe he's committed some of the same crimes Diddy committed and just hasn't been caught yet. So he's like, what, I'm gonna let them go. Or you're a rich guy who did well for yourself, I'm gonna let you go. Yep. Same for this dude he pardoned, I think, before he left in 2020, named Kodak Black, who really shouldn't have been let go. He would always get charged with having an unregistered firearm, I think, and just other crimes. It's he just literally just pardoned some random rapper who honestly didn't deserve it.
I think that specific example was to secure black voters.
Yeah, that's probably true. He didn't even really use it that much, though, going into 2024.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, as we know, the Israel-Hamas ceasefire went into effect on October 10th. And this was, we talked about it last time, multi-tiered, multi-phase plan. Hamas agreed to phase 1, which was the ceasefire, exchange of hostages on both sides, and then they wanted to negotiate the further phases. However, on October 18th, Gaza media reported that Israel had violated the ceasefire 47 times and killed 38 Palestinians. And then on October 19th, Israel said it launched large airstrikes in Gaza in response to a blatant violation by Hamas, an attack on Israeli forces in Rafah. So it's just kind of a pointing fingers, he said, she said, who violated it first. They're both saying the other side did. But the facts are that both of them during the ceasefire have attacked each other. So as of right now, those two events happened, and now there's no fighting. Luckily, we'll see how long that holds. J.D. Vance is in Israel today, meeting with Netanyahu and trying to keep this ceasefire going and work out the next phase of the deal, which is the disarmament of Hamas. We'll see if that actually happens. I really don't think that's likely. And then Trump has said that, with this Israel-Hamas negotiation deal that they made, all of the Middle Eastern countries support it, and Trump said that they have to be good. If they're not good, they'll be eradicated. So I think they could use that to, Hamas does one more attack, and that's just, we talked about it before, just an excuse to go full-blown war crimes and no consequences, just killing absolutely everybody and ending the war because nobody's alive in the Gaza Strip anymore.
Yeah. I kind of saw this coming, like how, we reached a deal with, with Hamas and that kind of thing. And then the Israel is going to be pretty uppity to say, you violated this agreement. Hamas is going to be uppity to say, Israel, you violated this agreement. And then they just go at each other. And that's a blow to Trump and his legacy that he didn't just get this clean, and there's been a ceasefire. There was a ceasefire and these kind of arrangements under Biden also, which then crumbled down and didn't really lead to much. This might just be another instance of the same thing where it's just a kind of little ceasefire and then it ends. But then I think that Trump definitely doesn't want this problem, like he sees as a problem, the Palestinians just lingering. So I could definitely see that as, that's the justification to kill them all, and then we can have the beachfront property that Trump talked about with Gaza, and owning and controlling Gaza and making it a state, or whatever the hell he wants to do with it. But yeah, definitely, that's unfortunate that we couldn't just get peace. But I guess that's how it goes in the Middle East. You're not, just peace in the Middle East is something you can wish for, but it's a hard thing to actually accomplish.
I don't know. I don't know much about, this, but from what I can see, if they do get this second phase done where Hamas is de-weaponized, Netanyahu is going to be like, ooh, look, no weapons. And there goes Palestine. The latest Superman movie that came out in July, makes a really good depiction of what's happening between Israel and Palestine.
I really like that movie.
It was a glorious movie.
Wait, what is it?
The newest Superman.
Oh, I haven't gotten around to seeing that yet.
You should.
It's a wonderful movie, and it literally portrays, Netanyahu as kind of the Antichrist, which I don't know. He might be. I don't know. The Antichrist might be some Joe Schmo out in Wisconsin. Who knows? But there is no justification for eradicating anybody for any reason. And also, Trump, saying all this stuff of we're getting peace in the Middle East, all this stuff. That's irrelevant. The Middle East doesn't need our help. They can support themselves. If anything, we need them because we have no oil. But, supposedly we do have oil reserves here in the U.S., but we're not going to build those because it's kind of bad for the environment. And then it's too expensive to, take all these white people out of their homes because there's a lot of settlements over these supposed oil fields, and the Republicans aren't going to do anything to harass or hurt the white people, and Democrats are kind of fighting for the environment. So we kind of need the Middle East, and I don't see why we're making up all these lies and starting all this conflict. Other conspiracies, maybe the CIA was in Hamas and started this breach of ceasefire or something, but who knows?
Yeah, I think that's a good point at the end there. It could easily be fabricated into, because the information is so, it's hard to pull out the real truth. When some independent research says that there's a famine in Gaza and there's genocide, and then Israel said no, that's not true. They could easily plant someone, or even just say, hey, Hamas violated the ceasefire, and so we're just gonna go full steam ahead. But we'll see what JD Vance is able to do. My personal opinion, I don't think it's likely the ceasefire will hold, unfortunately, but we'll see what happens. I saw that. So a recent audio clip was recovered by CNN about RFK Jr. talking about Trump and his followers on his radio show in 2016. He called them belligerent idiots, outright Nazis. And Kennedy also likened Trump to historical demagogues like Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, accusing Trump of exploiting societal insecurities and xenophobia to amass power. I think that's all very accurate. But as we know now, RFK Jr. is one of Trump's loyalists and, hasn't said anything criticizing him since he's been appointed head of HHS. And this is just a long list of people who previously disagreed with Trump, didn't support him, and then for, whatever reasons they differ, they now are full-blown MAGA. And some other examples of that, in 2016, J.D. Vance publicly labeled himself a never-Trumper and criticized Trump's policy proposals as immoral to absurd. He also called Trump unfit for our nation's highest office. He's been addressed and asked about this many, many times, including the vice presidential debate, and he ultimately said that he was wrong about Trump, and that's just not true. These people, they had some common sense and some critical thinking skills and said these truthful things, and then, when it came to it for personal gain or political gain, whatever the situation was, now they just align their values with Trump and don't say anything bad about him.
I don't think people understand with J.D. Vance, like he was basically a nobody. I think he was some journalist and that sort of thing, which is why they sort of cared about an author. And then in 2022, he basically got the endorsement in Ohio to run as a senator. And then not long after that, you got 2024 where he gets picked to be Trump's running mate, and then he becomes vice president. So from very little time, like he ascended to the Senate, then the vice presidency with very little time in government. And that's because he, kissed the ring of Trump, and that's how far he got because of that. The two of the highest offices in the land. So it's just kind of crazy when you think about what lying and all this can do, especially with RFK. He was criticizing Trump even during the campaign because RFK ran as a Democrat to start with, lost to Biden, and then ran as an independent. So then he was running against Trump for a little bit too, and he's criticizing Trump a little bit. But then he went, I think he might have even gone to Harris first to get like a spot in their administration if he drops out and endorses her. But then she said no, so then he went to Trump, and then Trump said yes, and then you would get a spot in my administration. And Trump doesn't really care, and if anything, that might make Trump even more likely to pick someone, because then he might see them as, oh, well, you disliked me in the past, but now you realize you have to bend the knee to me, so now I respect you more because at first you didn't like me, rather than someone who might have always been, because then they could turn back. But if they've already turned back before, I don't know, that's kind of gets into a weird philosophy question. But yeah.
Yeah, and also J.D. Vance, his reasoning of why he didn't like Trump before is because he consumed a lot of fabricated left-wing media stories, like the Russian probe and that sort of thing that are just facts. And now he's saying that, encouraging people to just disregard those things as false.
It's, I don't know, I've watched the documentary about J.D. Vance's life many times over just because it's a good movie in my opinion. Like when you just when you just go by the facts of how movies work, it's a good movie. And throughout it, he was, lower class, your average average American who pulled themselves up by their bootstrap. He got into Yale or Harvard or whatever, the school was, and he was working 4 jobs just to pay for it. And he got his law degree, he took all the steps to be your average American senator, or what the ideal average American senator is. And then he just turns his back on, his hometown, his upbringing, for money and, I don't know, maybe some Epstein Island type stuff. I don't know. But another thing that I heard and did some research on a year or so ago is when J.D. Vance first started getting into politics and started running for stuff, he got backed by one of the billionaires who is pretty anonymous. No one really knows who he is, but kind of a modern day Rockefeller in the sense of
Peter Thiel.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Super white supremacist, sexist. Just J.D. Vance was backed by this guy. And if someone's giving you money or you're under contract to do whatever, you kind of have to placate to that to save your own head and get ahead in life. So, I don't know. J.D. Vance has just become corrupt due to money and stuff in the capitalist system. So it's, the only politicians that have actually stuck out for the people have been more left-leaning people. And we've seen that since Reagan, Reagan was an actor. He was like, you know what, I understand how, the American experience is because a lot of politicians, grew up rich. Reagan didn't really grow up rich. But then Reagan got rich because he was an actor and then started doing all this stuff. So it's just insane. And then RFK's got dementia or something. RFK is just insane.
It's the worm in his brain.
Yeah. It's the worm in his brain. Maybe Alex Jones implanted the worm. I don't know. It's just, RFK is just insane. And he's been insane for years. But I don't know why people are just so quick to follow this idol of Trump and Trump's cronies and whatnot. It's insane. And they say they're Christians and they follow the Bible, but literally it's said over and over and over and over and over and over and over, not to idolize false gods. So I don't know. It's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, you want to bring up Peter Thiel. That's a whole nother topic. I watched a video on him, and he is genuinely a psychopath. You can watch interviews with him, and you're like, this guy is really, really strange. South Park did an episode, and they brought him into it. It's pretty funny. But, yeah, Peter Thiel funded J.D. Vance's political career when he first started out, and that leads people to believe that J.D. Vance is kind of owned by Peter Thiel. And if Trump dies in office, a lot of people will be worried that, whatever J.D. Vance is just kind of under the control of the elites, including Peter Thiel, and that, American policies will just kind of go towards them if they're not already. Yeah. But, okay, let's see. So President Trump recently just came out. He's seeking $230 million in compensation from his own Justice Department for federal investigations the DOJ carried out against him during the Biden administration, according to the New York Times, marking a potentially massive settlement payout to Trump following a string of lawsuit resolutions financially benefiting the president. So, I mean, he's a, what is he, billionaire? And he's seeking $230 million. This comes out of the American taxpayer's own wallet. You'd be paying, straight into Trump's bank account if this were to be accepted. I don't really understand the point of this other than he just wants the money, which is just very cruel considering who it comes from.
So he wants the money, but he also wants it on paper that the administration had to pay him, it's his administration for this dumbass shit, for going after him, for raiding his place that was 2024, wasn't it? When they raided Mar-a-Lago. When he literally had the boxes there of the classified documents, he had them move them around. He had them fucking put them in his bathroom and all this sort of thing. And it's like, honestly, Trump should be buried under the jail at this point. And the fact that he's not, and the fact that, after trying to overturn the election, he's not. And now he's trying to get all this money from it. It's just a fucking joke. It's like, why couldn't we be like Brazil, like what they did with Jair Bolsonaro of, now they're going to put him in jail because of what he did with trying to overturn that election. Why don't we be like South Korea, like what they did with their corrupt president who tried to declare martial law? It's like, it just makes absolutely no sense. And when he's saying, like, oh, yeah, I should get money from you. No, you shouldn't get money from no one. It's like, that's how much you should have to pay and more. Like, you shouldn't be awarded anything. It's like the fact that that Americans elected you president again after everything you did is just a fucking joke. And that's why Democrats are going to win by so much, because Americans are going to realize how much they fucked up, and they already did. They can go look at the prices of really anything at the store and see that it's increased to know that. And, you know, that's what they were bragging about during the Biden term. Oh, yeah, we're going to win based on groceries and prices. And it's like, okay, well, guess what? Now we're going to win because of that. So.
And he's going to end all the wars, which he said he'd do day one in office. He hasn't ended one. He said he's ended 8 wars. It was very hard to watch this, but he said that he's ended 8 wars, and he's not sure that any American president in history has ended any wars. He doesn't think a president has ever ended a war, so they just magically fizzled away. And saying something, I mean, his ego is honestly the biggest I've ever seen. It's unreal.
It is insane, and him saying that, you know, no other president's ever ended any wars goes against our the American proudness of ending World War II, getting rid of the Nazis. That just throws that out the window, which only helps, you know, fuel the rhetoric that this administration and the followers are all fascist and Nazis. You know, so, you know, kudos on him for at least keeping that straight and factual. And then I lost my train of thought, but he says all this stuff, and you know, technically, presidents are supposed to sell any assets that they hold before they take office. I think Trump is the only president who has not done that. And he just wants more money, even though he's passively just collecting more and more income from all of his real estate and all these assets. You know, Jimmy Carter had assets and was forced to sell them. Like, they weren't great assets. They were like, you know, maybe just a handful of stocks in like some farmland somewhere. But Jimmy Carter was forced to get rid of those, and Trump doesn't have to lose a dime. That's bureaucracy. That's insane. And if, you know, it's like, what is Trump's goal is my only question. Is he trying to be a king, or is he trying just to get a shitload of money and then just bail?
Or maybe a little bit of both, or if he thinks he can't become a king or he might fail, then at least he could get a bunch of money and get out the door.
But I mean, he knows he's going to die soon. I mean, what does he plan to do if money is the goal?
I mean, I don't think money is necessarily the goal. It's just power and his influence, and he wants to spread it. And I think he wants to be president until he dies. But if he doesn't and he gets out, and I think he realizes he might be kicked out and he might not succeed at getting a third term, then if he has money, he's like, well, at least I can live comfortably for like however much longer. I think he just cares about like hedonistic, like moment to moment, like what feels good in this moment and what is cool. So like being president would be cool for however long. If he dies in office, fine. If he has to leave, then okay, well then I can still eat McDonald's and if I throw ketchup at the wall and do all this kind of shit that he likes to do. But yeah, that's what I think.
I'd also like to add on the lawsuit or the settlement that he's seeking that the case will be reviewed by senior DOJ officials, including some who previously served as Trump's attorneys or advisors before joining the administration. So that's not a good sign. You know, it's being reviewed by people who have ties with him, worked with him in the past, and could allow this to go through.
Yeah, and then all the right-wingers are going to be like, oh, yeah, even the DOJ said the investigations were fraudulent and not actually based on anything. It's like, yeah, it's because it's fucking Trump's DOJ. It's Trump's people. So, yeah we're not going to take that seriously, period. Maybe if they were actually, bipartisan and or not partisan, actually, and there was actually a separation between the DOJ and the president, but apparently there's not now, which there historically has been. That's why, Biden was frustrated that they didn't go after Trump hard enough. He didn't go after the DOJ or tell them to do that because he knew there was a line there that you shouldn't step over. But Trump doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, nope, I just wanted to go after my political opponents, and I'm going to tell them now to give me taxpayer money when they were for an administration going after me when they had every right to, because you stole hundreds of classified documents. You tried to overturn an election. You lost by 7 million votes. It's like, I don't even understand how anyone could see him as being in the right on this. But that's for basically everything.
Being in the right on anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I intend to debate with some people that I know voted for Trump, including some of my family, just to really understand their thinking behind it. Some that have daughters and vote for him. Like I think that's absurd. I don't see. I really just want to know what the reasoning is and what people think. On the other side.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that's also what interests me a lot when I talk to any of my family or, just people I know. And, like, one thing I find wild is there's some people I know who are, like, these super far-right, sexist Nazis. And I've seen them out on dates with women, and they're acting the most genuinely ever. And I'm so confused about it because they're open about how, fascist they are. How are they still getting these, not just like any random woman, like these are like sophisticated, like educated women who.
And they don't hide it. Like the girl that's with them knows that.
Yeah. Like, it's insane to me.
Yeah.
So I should be seeing some family this weekend. I might talk to them about some of this stuff because it just piques my interest.
Yeah. I just started reading this book called The Separation of Church and Hate. It was, have you heard of it?
I'm fairly aware. I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet, but from what I've heard, it's very along the lines of the book Sapiens, which that book is just kind of about the history of like humanity and like it's like religion and politics just across since, the birth of Homo sapiens or whatever. I had to read that my senior year of high school, and it was pretty interesting. So I just heard that they're somewhat similar. So I haven't read it yet, but I plan on reading it soon.
Yeah, I just started. I really like it so far. It's just about how far-right Christian nationalists weaponize the Bible and Jesus' teachings to preach hate and violence and just the opposite of what the Bible, says that you should do. It's really interesting, and it talks about how to debate with people who believe this and, kind of use their own reasoning against them. You believe this part of the Bible, but you don't, what's it called when you pick and choose?
Cherry pick.
Yeah, cherry pick, what you want to believe and what you don't. So, I think that, a lot of this far right group that calls themselves Christians, they hate on gay people, trans people, women's rights, all these things, and it's just the opposite of what the Bible talks about, and it's a growing movement, but I think there's a lot of people that consider themselves. They stopped going to church, maybe consider themselves not even religious because they grew up religious, but there's just this growing movement of, hate that they don't agree with, so they can't align themselves with that anymore.
I grew up in, the happy Utah Valley. I grew up very LDS, and when I, started realizing that I was, part of the LGBTQ community, I was like, okay, I've read the doctrine, I've talked with, the bishop. Luckily, my bishop at the time, I'm pretty sure he's still the current bishop. He's a fantastic guy. He's really understanding about everything, He doesn't necessarily agree with, people being queer, but, like, he still loves people for who they are, Once he gets to know you, that's who you are, He just knows me as a, very kind and musical person, which that's basically most of my identity. But like after talking with him a little bit and a lot of, research into the doctrine and the new youth guides, it all says like, oh yeah, it's fine. You're more than welcome to, still, study our gospel, be with us, worship with us, all this stuff, But, just the people inside, just with all this hate and whatnot, is insane. And once I finally kind of realized that, it hurt a lot because I, for my own safety, had to stop attending church and whatnot. Kind of had to hide, which, hurt me a lot because I do enjoy that, that gospel, that religion. It's what I consider myself still. I just can't participate because all these people are like, oh, this is evil or whatever, even when, nothing's changed. It's just insane to me.
Yeah, they're saying who you are as a person is wrong. Mm-hmm. And I've done some research recently into queer people, and there's just, like, I was talking to the guy at the Turning Point table, and he made a comment that he cares and loves queer people, so he wants to help them with their mental illness. And I really want to have him on here and talk to him about that, because there's just, I could go into the details, I won't, but there's just so much evidence. It's not a mental illness. It's just who you are. It's natural in humans. It's natural in the animal kingdom with hundreds of other types of animals, and humans are just supposed to be exactly two. It just doesn't make any sense. And especially the people who use the Bible as justification for people who are not even religious, and it doesn't apply to them at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to discuss, this like Bible talk with anybody, because again, I was, very kind of devout in my young teenage years with my religion, and, did a lot of scripture study. Now, will I have to, read a little bit more to remember what exact verses say which and what? Yes, but, I know what the Christian religion text says, like almost word for word. So that would be a fun discussion to have.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about that next time. You can bring, maybe bring some verses, and we can talk about the details of that. Maybe we'll try and get that guy on here. I really did enjoy talking with him, debating with him. I felt like there was a lot of common ground, other than the obvious differences that we had, and I felt like he was still very respectful and understanding. So I think he'd be someone good to have on here from the other side.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you all have a nice day or night. I'll see you later.